Gaurav Sawant, our India Today correspondent, who's been live right from the start of this war, bringing us all the accurate updates. Gaurav, there's a lot of talk around who blasted the Gaza hospital that killed nearly 500. First of all, the casualties, the number itself is still uncertain, whether it's 500 or less or more is something that needs to be established. But some of the images, and India Today's OSINT's team really suggesting that there isn't a big crater that was expected around the hospital site. Some of the walls of the hospital still remain intact. So only a few cars have been damaged. So to take Hamas's word verbatim that 500 of their civilians have died in the hospital blast and that the Israeli Defense Forces attacked the hospital is something that we need to think twice.
Nabila, you're absolutely right. This is information warfare, as important and as critical as the warfare on ground. The India Today team right now is very close to the fence at Gaza Strip in southern Israel. This is actually very close. You can even hear the machine gun fire as we speak. In this area, very, very critical. The information warfare that's being waged, you're absolutely right. Had a JDAM been used, had any of those aircraft fired rockets or missiles being used to target either the hospital or any area in the vicinity of the hospital, there would have been a much bigger crater. The damage would have been much, much more, as we've seen in those Hamas strongholds that have been targeted by Israel, whether using 155 howitzers, the PGMs, the precision guided munition, or rockets and missiles. However, this, according to the Israeli government and also the IDF and India Today's OSINT, reveals that there is a very small dent on the road, quite like the projectiles that are fired by either Hamas or Islamic Jihad all along the area where we are in southern Israel. It causes a small, dent on the road or a building. The building, by and large, remains intact, which wouldn't be the case had it been fired by Israeli Air Force. The propellant is what is learned to have caused burn injuries and also fire on ground, because the rocket had just been launched. A barrage of rocket had been launched, and one misfired fell close to the hospital, leading to the casualties. And you're absolutely right, there is no clarity on the number of fatalities and injuries. The Palestinian Authority claims it's 471 or 500 as the Islamic Jihad and Hamas claim. But again, no independent verification on ground. So Israel says this is information or misinformation warfare, which has led to fires being spread all along the Arab world. A lot of protests are happening, and this is actually leading to more tensions in this area. Nabila.
Right. You know, Gaurav, what's tragic at the moment, even as global leaders descend into Israel, are convincing Israel now to think or roll back on plans to lay siege over Gaza, you still have at least 200 hostages in captivity of Hamas. And really not too much discussion that I hear on those lines, on what happens to those Israeli citizens. We're still not sure of their safety. Any communication that Israel's defense forces is having with the hostages or Hamas operatives who have held them captive?
So the word that initially came out from Iran was that there are between 200 and 250 hostages, and they would be released subject to Israel stopping the bombing of the Gaza Strip that you see right behind me. But those bombs continue to go off. You can also hear helicopters here. So this part of the Gaza Strip or the border that you see is extremely volatile. This indicates that Israel hasn't stopped either its bombing or targeting of Hamas strongholds. Whether there are 200 to 250 hostages, well, Israel has officially confirmed there are 199 families that have been informed that their kin are being held hostages by Hamas. Whether it's the United States of America or England, through interlocutors, through other countries, Arab countries in the region, they're expected to play a very critical role in securing the release of hostages. Israel, of course, has said no humanitarian aid goes into Gaza Strip from Israel as till the hostages are repatriated. They have, however, on the request of the American President Joe Biden, who was here yesterday, said that yes, we'll permit humanitarian aid going through the Egyptian border, the Rafah border crossing in the south, but that is also only food, water, and medicines subject to verification and subject to the International Red Cross Society getting access to the hostages. Once that is verified, is the information that we've been given, then this food aid can go into Gaza Strip, especially to the areas of South Gaza, south of Wadi Gaza River. Nabila.
Right. You're there at a time when all the world leaders are descending. Joe Biden to be the first from the United States, and now Rishi Sunak of the United Kingdom. They've unequivocally condemned this war and condemned Hamas, terming Hamas itself a terror organization. But at the same time, how is this given a sense of boost to Israel? Would you be able to tell us what kind of help, apart from military aid, has the United States and United Kingdom given to Israel?
So there's billions of dollars of military aid that's flowing Israel's way from the United States of America. But weapons and systems and ammunition is what Israel requires to carry on this war against Hamas, and also to strengthen its internal defenses in the form of Iron Dome system. The all the you know short range surface to air missiles that the Iron Dome system requires to destroy the missiles that are coming in, or the rockets that are coming in from Gaza Strip. The Iron Dome system gets activated. So America is playing a very critical role, not just on ground, not just providing additional arms and ammunition, including small arms, but also having two aircraft carrier strike groups in the Mediterranean Sea. And again, you hear machine gun fire behind me. These aircraft carrier strike groups in the Mediterranean Sea, along with British warships coming into these waters, send out a very strong message to countries like Lebanon and Iran not to get involved, because America and England are desperately trying to ensure that this doesn't widen into a wider Arab Israel war. They don't want a repeat of that. They just want this to be restricted to Israel's war on Hamas terror. And that Israel has made very clear it will continue. They will not take it lying
Gaurav,
down if
if you really
1,400
look
of
at the
their civilians
size
have
and
been
might of
massacred.
the
More
military,
than 300
the
have been injured.
Israeli Defense Forces are known to be one of the mightiest along the Middle Eastern region, and even part of the West. They really have a loaded military. And compared to them, what Hamas has and owns is really the difference here between a mountain and a mole. So it's not difficult for Israel to wipe off Hamas and soon enough.
It's easier said than done, and that's the devastation that's caused by this asymmetric warfare. It's not a battle of equals, and it's not as if two armies are facing each other. Yes, if you were to if you were to do a bean count, the number of soldiers that Israel has, the number of weapons Israel has, and the number of terrorists Hamas has, and the number of rockets Hamas has, there is no comparison. But look at that big
Isn't
difference.
it?
Hamas hides behind civilians. Hamas targets through stealth. Hamas uses civilians as a shield. So it's not a war that is being fought between two armies. It's a war that's being fought where Israel has its hands tied behind its back, because when Israel targets a terrorist organization like Hamas, it has to ensure that civilians are not targeted, or at least not directly. Israeli Defense Forces today gave out images. Hamas used a location very close to a hospital on one side and a school on the other side to launch rockets from a cemetery into Israel. And that, according to Israel, is an area where they cannot fire back, even though they know rockets are being fired from there. Hamas is hiding amongst civilians. They're not wearing a uniform. They don't, they're not organized as an army out at the front lines. If they were, it would take less than 24 hours to decimate them, is what Israeli army officers on ground tell me. So even if ground incursions are mounted, Nabila, easier said than done. Hamas would be hiding in some house with civilians in front. They would suddenly come up with their anti-tank missiles and target a tank, and the Israelis cannot fire back at that house because there would be civilians inside. So that is where this is an unequal war, with Hamas having advantage home ground and hiding behind civilians.